Good evening, Malawi. Good evening, Africa. And welcome to Global Pulse News, where the stories breathe and the headlines hit harder than a Lilongwe thunderstorm. Tonight, the spotlight is blazing on one of the most talked about updates from the Bon Kalindo Daily, October 13th edition. Yes, you heard that right. Wang'alula HRDC pa upo wa Mademo. The phrase alone has turned heads faster than fuel prices rising overnight. And if you're wondering what this all means, don't blink, because this story mixes politics, pressure, and power like a blender with no lid. From the streets of Blantyre to the corners of Mzuzu, everyone is asking, what's really going on between Wang'alula, HRDC, and the so-called Upo Amademo? Is this a power shift, a protest reshaped, or simply another Malawi moment where smoke often means fire? Stay tuned, because tonight we unpack it fact by fact. Apa ndipomwe zintuzayamba kusinta abale. Let's start where it all begins, Bon Kalindo. For those new to the name, Bon Kalindo isn't just a person anymore. It's become an event, a pulse, a rhythm of the nation's public conversation. Every episode drops with the energy of breaking thunder, unfiltered, unafraid, and unapologetic. Today's edition, October 13th, wasn't just another broadcast. It was an eruption, a combination of frustration, fiery words, and fearless commentary that set social media ablaze before the segment even ended. Bon Kalindo went live, and the nation listened, some with approval, some with raised eyebrows, and a few with their popcorn ready for the drama. In today's feature, the tension centered on one bold line. Wangalula has challenged HRDC pa upo wa Mademo. Translated loosely, this means Wangalula has challenged HRDC at the protest stance. But, as any Malawian knows, translation alone doesn't tell the full story. Context, tone, and timing make all the difference. What Kalindo did was more than commentary. It was a challenge to the status quo. He questioned the alignment between the Human Rights Defenders Coalition, HRDC, and the Mademo movement, implying that political motivations may have started replacing the people's cause. And that, ladies and gentlemen, hit a nerve. For those who might not recall, HRDC has long stood as the voice of accountability, the street's megaphone for justice, and the watchdog against government excess. But when a high-profile personality like Bon Kalindo calls them out, suggesting that internal power plays may be brewing, you can bet that the political temperature starts to climb faster than a Zomba afternoon. Social media exploded, memes, debates, accusations, all fired up. Some said Kalindo was speaking truth to power. Others claimed he was stirring the pot for attention. Either way, he had everyone talking, and that's the genius of Bon Kalindo's formula, mixing controversy with clarity and leaving the audience both enlightened and entertained. As one Facebook user put it, Kalindo is like chili na wansima, painful but necessary. Apa ndipamene tonse tienera kumva kuti, this isn't just noise. It's a reflection of deeper tension brewing in Malawi's civil and political spaces. The first fact sets the tempo. Bon Kalindo is not just a messenger. He's a mirror, showing the cracks and reflections that most would rather ignore. Batabale, if Kalindo's mic was fire, then Wangalula's response was pure gasoline. Let's move to fact 2 and see how HRDC found itself in the middle of this high-voltage storm. Now, let's turn to the man at the center of the swirl, Wangalula. To the untrained eye, he might appear calm, composed, almost diplomatic in tone. But those who followed his journey know, behind that calm smile lies a seasoned strategist who reads politics like a chessboard. And this week, his every move has the HRDC and the public guessing his next play. When Bon Kalindo mentioned his name alongside the phrase, Baupo Mademo, the internet didn't just react, it detonated. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know, is Wangalula breaking ranks with HRDC? Has the coalition fractured? Or is this all part of a larger political choreography where public dissent hides private alliances? In several local interviews, Wangalula brushed off the idea that he was against HRDC. Instead, he insisted he was clarifying a path for progress. A clever phrasing, perhaps, one that avoids fire but fans curiosity. Apandia nzomwetimati kulankula manja mwa mpepo, speaking carefully, without really saying it all. Observers noted that while he praised HRDC's historic role in holding government accountable, his tone hinted at fatigue, a suggestion that the coalition may have lost its original spirit. He spoke about new strategies, new leadership energy, and redirecting focus from protests to policies. That may sound diplomatic, but in Malawian political language, that's like tapping someone on the shoulder while reaching for their seat. The HRDC's internal circles naturally didn't take that lightly. Anonymous voices whispered that Wangalula's words felt like betrayal. Yet others said this was exactly the wake-up call HRDC needed, a reminder that civic activism must evolve, not just revolve. Across social media, the divide deepened. Some saw Wangalula as a reformer, others as a defector. But everyone agreed on one thing: his timing was no accident. As one Twitter user posted, Wangalula waited for the cameras, and he dropped his truth like a grenade. Komatieni tikale chelu. In Malawi, timing is everything. And this statement came just days before HRDC's planned press update on their next phase of demonstrations. Coincidence? Perhaps. Or maybe a tactical strike to shift public sentiment before the microphones turn back to HRDC. Either way, this calm strategist had just turned a protest into a political puzzle. But abale, every puzzle has a reaction, and HRDC was not about to stay silent. Fact number 3, the coalition speaks out. And the tone? Let's just say polite fire. If you thought HRDC would brush off Kalindo's broadcast or Wangalula's comments with a smile, think again. Within 24 hours, the coalition spokespeople convened what can only be described as a controlled thunderstorm. A statement emerged, carefully worded but unmistakably sharp. HRDC remains united, undivided, and unwavering in its mission to defend the rights of Malawians. Behind those diplomatic syllables, insiders said, lay deep frustration. One HRDC coordinator from Blantyre reportedly told our source, "Tikuziwa kale izi. There are always people who want to divide us from within." The tone, though measured, carried the kind of heat that usually comes before a storm. The statement went further, subtly referencing self-styled commentators seeking clout through misinformation. Now, they didn't mention Kalindo or Wangalula by name, but in Malawi's political theater, you don't need to. Everyone knew who the spotlight was on. Within hours, radio panels lit up. Zodiac's afternoon show hosted both HRDC representatives and local analysts. The debate was fiery yet intelligent, full of the classic back and forth that makes Malawian talk shows addictive. Should civic leaders go public with internal disagreements? One host asked. Another chimed in, or is this openness exactly what our democracy needs? Meanwhile, the HRDC's Facebook page saw a flood of comments, some praising their firmness, others demanding transparency. One follower wrote, "We support HRDC, but we also deserve to know when leadership disagrees. After all, sindarama zatu zimagritis wanshinto." That line captured the mood of the nation, a blend of loyalty and accountability. Political analysts quickly joined the fray. One senior commentator from Chancellor College noted that HRDC's greatest asset, unity, was now being tested by the new era of social media activism. In the past, movements could manage their narratives through rallies and statements. Now, a single viral clip from Bon Kalindo can reshape the entire national mood in minutes. As he put it, the battlefield has moved from the streets to the screens. Apa ndio pomwe zintu zayamba kusinda kwa mbili. HRDC, which once controlled the rhythm of protest, now must dance to the unpredictable beat of public opinion, instant, loud, and unforgiving. By day end, HRDC's leadership promised an internal review of communication strategies, but many could already feel the tremor, the sense that the coalition's image, once untouchable, had finally been dented. And as we Malawians know, once a dent forms in a political car, everyone waits to see if it will be polished or crash on the next bend.
When the dust settled from the HRDC statement, you'd think the story would calm down.
But in today's Malawi, that's not how things work. The street doesn't wait for press conferences. It reacts in real time. And that's exactly what happened. From Blantyre's bustling markets to Mzuzu's minibus stands, from WhatsApp groups to TikTok comment sections, everyone had an opinion. And like a true Malawian storm, the conversation came fast, loud, and in every language you can imagine. At one roadside cafe in Area 23, a man was overheard saying, "Kalindo was brave. People fear to speak, but he speaks what others only whisper." Meanwhile, across town, another group of young professionals debated whether he was being brave or reckless. Sometimes, one said, we mistake noise for leadership. Tikufuna solutions, not just speeches. Online, the reactions painted a perfect picture of Malawi's divided mood. On Facebook, hashtags like Team Kalindo and Stand with HRDC began trending simultaneously. Twitter, or X, as the cool kids now call it, became a digital battleground where every opinion felt like a rally. One user wrote, "We are tired of selective activism. If HRDC is for the people, then let's see action, not press statements." Another countered, "Kalindo wants attention. HRDC is doing the hard work quietly." Apandie Pomwe Malawi shows its democratic heart, noisy, diverse, but deeply engaged. Say what you will about our politics, but one thing is clear. Malawians care. They may disagree loudly, but silence? Never. Radio hosts joined the wave. Zodiac FM's evening panel, Tiuzeni Zolna, opened its lines for live calls. Within minutes, the lines were jammed. One caller from Mangochi said, "Awan dintawi zakusinta." We need transparency even from those who fight for transparency. Another caller from Dedsa added, HRDC should not fear criticism. Bon Kalindo is reminding them that power must serve the people, not positions. Through all of this, one truth became undeniable. Civic engagement is no longer confined to rallies or city squares. It's digital, it's daily, and it's direct. And perhaps that's what Bon Kalindo wanted all along. Not chaos, but conversation. Yet with public conversation comes public confusion. As debates grew, misinformation slipped in. Fake quotes, misattributed statements, and exaggerated headlines. The kind of digital wildfire that can scorch reputations overnight. Media watchdogs urged calm, reminding citizens to verify before you vilify. Goma abale, tika kalandima social media awa. Sometimes even truth struggles to trend. Still, the people spoke, and their collective voice became fact 4. Malawi is awake, alert, and unafraid to question everyone, even those who claim to fight for them. But as every good story in Malawi goes, once the people speak, the politicians listen, or pretend to. Fact 5 takes us to the halls of power where this HRDC saga started echoing louder than anyone expected.
Politics in Malawi is like Lake Malawi itself, calm on the surface but full of hidden currents. And when stories like this one hit the water, those currents start to shift. Within days of the HRDC Kalindo Wangalula storm, whispers reached Parliament. A few MPs, especially those aligned with the opposition, couldn't resist turning the debate into political capital. "We told you," one MP declared during a radio interview, "that the so-called civil movements are not immune to politics. They have their own factions, their own power struggles." He smiled into the mic like a man who'd been waiting months to say it. Government officials, meanwhile, played their cards cautiously. The official line from the Ministry of Information was one of respect for civic freedom. But off record, insiders hinted that some were quietly enjoying the HRDC drama. After all, when the watchdogs are busy barking at each other, no one's watching the house. Apandezo mamati, kujama banana pomwe ena kukangana. It's an old Malawian saying, some feast while others fight. Political analysts, however, were less amused. They warned that exploiting civic divisions for short-term gain could erode the very foundation of democracy. Professor Nyirenda, speaking on NBC's Inside Malawi, noted, when institutions of accountability are shaken by internal mistrust, governments grow comfortable and citizens grow tired. In the background, political strategists began recalibrating. Some parties saw opportunity, courting influential HRDC members behind closed doors, testing alliances, planting seeds. Others distanced themselves entirely, fearing backlash. Every politician knows when the public is angry, proximity to controversy can burn faster than dry firewood. The international community also took note. A brief from the European Union office in Lilongwe reminded all actors, political and civic, of the importance of maintaining trust, dialogue, and transparency. Diplomatic language, yes, but in Malawi, such reminders often carry more weight than press releases. Meanwhile, smaller activist groups, once overshadowed by HRDC's big presence, began organizing again. They saw the noise as an opening. If HRDC is distracted, then it's our time to step forward. The people's movement must continue. By week's end, it was clear Bon Kalindo hadn't just stirred debate, he'd changed the power dynamics. His broadcast had forced politicians, activists, and citizens to re-evaluate who truly speaks for the people. The political ripple had become a wave. And if there's one thing every Malawian knows, when waves hit Lake Malawi, they travel far. So the politicians are shifting, the activists are adjusting, and the public is wide awake. But who's steering this ship now? Fact 6 takes us into the world of influence, the media, the rumors, and the narrative tug-of-war that decides who owns the story.
In any democracy, information is power, but in Malawi, controlling that information is an art. Once the HRDC Kalindo saga broke, every newsroom, blog, and talk show wanted a piece of the pie. And as they say in the newsroom corridors, breaking news sells, but broken context confuses. Major broadcasters went into overdrive. NBC ran its usual balanced coverage, emphasizing official statements and government responses. Zodiac, on the other hand, leaned into the public conversation, asking the uncomfortable questions that everyone else avoided. One memorable segment opened with the line, "Is Malawi's activism losing its soul or finding its truth?" A line so sharp it trended before the episode even ended. Meanwhile, independent journalists flooded social media with live updates, analysis threads, and opinion polls. Citizen journalism was alive and roaring. TikTok creators remixed clips from Bon Kalindo's podcast with music, memes, and captions, turning serious politics into snack-sized viral entertainment. Apania zoe amati zokambirana zapitsa pa internet. But this sudden information overload created a new problem. Truth started drowning in the noise. Misleading posts spread faster than verified ones. A few fake Facebook pages even impersonated HRDC officials, posting fabricated statements to stir tension. One viral post claimed HRDC had expelled Wangalula, completely false, but shared thousands of times before anyone fact-checked it. Media watchdogs sounded the alarm. The Media Council of Malawi urged the public to consume information responsibly and reminded outlets that freedom of speech is not freedom from accuracy. Yet the line between news and noise had already blurred. Through all this, Bon Kalindo remained unusually quiet. No new broadcasts, no online posts. Silence from a man who thrives on attention? That was telling. Some speculated he was preparing another explosive episode. Others thought he was letting the chaos speak for him. As one journalist quipped, Kalindo doesn't chase headlines, he becomes them. The media war revealed something deeper. Malawi's democracy is evolving fast, maybe faster than its institutions can handle. In the old days, stories unfolded through press briefings and official radio bulletins. Today, a single TikTok video can shape national perception before a journalist even drafts their script. Fact 6 reminds us that the media, whether state, private, or social, doesn't just report reality, it manufactures meaning. And whoever owns the narrative owns the nation's attention. But attention, like power, never last long. The question now, after all the smoke, statements, and speculation, is simple. What next? In our final fact, we look ahead, where this storm might be heading, and whether Malawi's civic spirit will rise stronger or sink deeper.
Every story has an aftershock, and this one is no different. The saga of Bon Kalindo, Wangalula, and HRDC has done more than shake headlines. It's forced an entire nation to look in the mirror. In the days following the uproar, analysts across Malawi began calling for a reset, a moment of reflection for activists, politicians, and the media alike. One columnist wrote, "If we can argue this passionately about accountability, imagine what we could build if we worked together with the same energy." It's a line worth thinking about. The truth is, Malawi's democratic fabric is both fragile and resilient. HRDC's tension shows that even the loudest voices for justice are not immune to fatigue, ego, or miscommunication. But it also proves something beautiful. The Malawians will not sit quietly when they sense imbalance. Antu akufuna zowona, osati zolemba zoka. Several outcomes now hang in the balance. HRDC, realizing the hit to its credibility, is reportedly revising its internal communications and transparency systems. A few insiders even mentioned possible leadership reshuffles before year's end. Meanwhile, Wangalula's growing public appeal may turn him into a new kind of civic influencer, one who navigates between activism and policy. If he plays it right, he could become the bridge between protest and reform. As for Bon Kalindo, the man who started the fire, sources hint that another broadcast is coming soon. Insiders describe it as bigger, bolder, and maybe riskier. If history is any guide, that means he's about to drop another truth bomb or grenade, depending on where you stand. But beyond individuals, the bigger question remains. Can Malawi's civic community turn this moment of division into an opportunity for renewal? Because as one pastor said during a Blantyre community meeting, unity without honesty is noise. Honesty without unity is chaos. But when both walk together, progress follows. Apandia chifunzito cha kikulu chankani. The debate, the outrage, the laughter, and the memes, they all show one thing. Malawians are paying attention. They are no longer passive consumers of politics, they are participants. That in itself is democracy at work. So whether you stand with HRDC, applaud Wang'alula's courage, or just enjoy Bon Kalindo's boldness, remember, this story isn't ending, it's evolving. And as always, Ziko limayenda ndiantuake. A nation moves only as far as its people dare to think, speak, and act. And that, Abale Ndialongo, brings us to the big finish, the takeaway, the reflection, and the message that ties it all together. In the final part, we close this broadcast with the GlobalPulseNewz lens, sharp, fearless, and forward-looking.